Okay, motion to approve as amended, Mayor Bailey, Councillor Oakley, questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Declaration of pecuniary interest. If anybody has any now, let me know. If anything comes up through the meeting, please advise me as soon as you can. Delegations. Did I see Matt? Yeah. Oh, there he is back there. He's hiding. We got some delegations today. Matt Cummings, chairman of the Paris BIA. You want to come up? Welcome. You've done this before, but just a reminder, you've got 10 minutes. Just let us know who you are. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. My name is Matt Cummings. I'm the chair of the Downtown Paris BIA, as well as the owner of Stillwaters and Cobblestone in downtown. I'm just here today to start a conversation. We've been dealing with filming, obviously, over the last couple of months, and I'm one of these people who I've always been a cheerleader for the county of Brant and cheerleader for everything downtown, and even outside of downtown Paris. But sometimes a conversation needs to be started about things that we're doing down here, and especially to raise awareness for how our decisions are affecting other people. I understand it's not always perfect. I understand we can't get things right all the time. But from dealing with what we've been dealing with over the last couple of months, part of me being here is starting a conversation. The other part is asking if we could look at filming differently down the road. And what I mean by that is not saying no, not eliminating it altogether, but having some sort of a steering committee that involves business groups that are affected by filming, as well as obviously counselors, and that can come up with a proper filming policy that we can all go by, that has some level of consistency to it, that also makes the job easier for county staff. Because we've been dealing with what we've been dealing with, we've also been working with county staff who are doing everything that they can to represent the county as professionally as they possibly can. Trust me, they are. But they're handcuffed in a lot of ways, and they're handcuffed by what the BIA is looking at and saying, okay, why is this happening to us? Why do we have to go through this? They're handcuffed by being asked to deal with filming on either a small scale or a large scale, but they don't have a policy. They have no idea what they're supposed to be doing on certain aspects, who they're supposed to. They have guys like me coming at them in one direction. They have the want for more filming in the county coming in another direction. But then what happens is that when that filming hits downtown Paris, and it hits a bottleneck of a community, and it affects the community as greatly as it does, it creates problems. Some of them are big problems. And even then, I still don't want to sit here and say no. All I'm asking is can we have a filming policy in place that involves everyone who's affected? Because I also understand, I do it all the time. I'm in business myself. Sometimes I sit there and I think, yeah, this would be great. Let's do this. But you don't actually think about, that's step one, is making a decision. I get caught all the time not thinking about step 3 or step 5 or step 10 and how that's going to affect people down the road. And I will admit, as much as I am a cheerleader for things like this, I will admit when I saw the first ask for motorheads, I was angry. They knew I was angry. County staff knew I was angry. I was shocked that somebody would ask a community of businesses to remove all of their parking and access to a main street to come in and film a TV show. Like I've never, honestly, I can honestly say in all my years of business and I've never been that angry at somebody because I felt like I was just being taken advantage of. And the county was in a bad spot too, because they're trying to make everybody happy, right? And believe me, they've been doing a phenomenal job. They've been doing the best we can, but we have to have something that's a little bit more concrete, because then as we move along, we'll have a better understanding of how filming impacts different areas of the community. Because it's one thing if you're going to film in an area where it's a farmer's field and they pay the farmer's field and they do their film. It's another thing when you're filming in the main artery of Paris, Ontario. And all I'm asking, I suppose, is for a little bit more involvement in the business communities. And I mentioned to Zach the last time we had a meeting, the problem is we have to be careful with that as well, because it can't just be business communities walking in there and saying the answer is no all the time, forget it. You can't have that either. You got to have a little bit of a balance, but the business communities have to be involved, because I hear it. Motorheads comes in and they pay people off to, and that's great. They shut down the cobblestone. They had some financial resources available for that, but that's a direct hit, right? But then you have other businesses when you shut down the main street and they're all indirectly affected, but nobody really wants to say anything. And I can tell you, Stillwater's, when we close the street, Stillwater's sales are immediately cut in half, right? So on any given night, they're immediately cut in half. Now, full disclosure, I could probably sit there and say, you know what? That's fine. I can deal with it. I see the bigger picture. I see to a certain degree where we're at. But how do I explain to my staff that they're looking out and they're seeing these people they've never seen before that are coming in here to film a movie, and they're walking home and they're not making any money, or they're getting sent home early? They don't even know what's going on, right? All they're seeing is there's less money in their pocket. They're seeing the reservations getting canceled left, right, and center. And they look at it and they think to themselves, I'm here all the time. Why am I being financially affected by these people who are coming in here and then they're going to be gone? You can't look at it that way either. But there has to be some sort of policy in place that we can all work by, so we all understand where each other is coming from, and the people who come in understand how the business communities in the county of Brant operate when it comes to filming, especially if you want to take down a main artery such as downtown Paris. That will be all.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Questions? Councillor House.
Through the chair, thanks, Matt, for bringing in the voice of reality. The appeal, the supposed appeal
Yep.
of filming in any community is it's supposed to deliver an economic benefit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because we want to meet movie stars.
Yeah.
Since you're here, and since this is the topic of this delegation, can you speak to us a little bit more? And I think I asked this maybe last time you were here, but so far in this current experience, is it an economic positive? Is it an economic negative? Or is it yet to be determined?
So I'm hearing a whole bunch of both. The economic positive is not from anything other than when they bring money in. So in other words, if they're going to shut a business down, they will pay, that sort of thing. That would be the positive. But for me personally, if I'm looking strictly at, if you're asking me as a business owner, I can show you sales printouts of the same days that when they shut the street down intermittently, and the exact same day the previous year. I can show you the sales sheets and what they look like. And even that, I'm a little bit like, you know what? It's you kind of got to deal with that stuff. It's not all about you all the time. I get it. My concern is that when we're doing it now, it's one thing. We've got 5 years coming up of some street being closed at some time in some capacity, right? So the thought is that if we are like, yeah, come on in here and film and let's do this, imagine what it's going to be like once, obviously they're not going to want to be downtown next year, I get it. But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, what's it going to be like when Mechanic is also closed and they want to come shoot in Grand River? Can you imagine what the economic impact is going to be then, right? So it's not always about, it's not just now, although I guess to answer your question, I have only ever seen a negative, other than when they've come in and paid businesses to. The other reality of it is that we're going to be approving filming for people who aren't Amazon, who aren't going to walk in and say, I understand this is what's happening to you. Here's like, because when they gave me money for the cobblestone to shut down, I didn't keep all that. I had to give it to the staff who were also out a ton of money that day, right? So what's going to happen when a filming company comes in and they're not Amazon? They don't have money to throw around, because this one's done. This one, we're dealing with it right now, right? There's one left. There's no point in, but we have to learn our lessons from it. Otherwise, over the next 5 years, I have to imagine that since Amazon has come here, I have to imagine that there's been more filming companies asking to come here. I don't know, but I have to assume that there was. And the problem is what they're seeing is that Amazon is shutting the street down. Amazon is, if they were to pull up right now and see all the parking gone downtown, they're thinking this is a heyday, right? But it's not. There's real businesses and people that are affected by this. And if those people, and they probably don't know what Amazon is paying each individual business to shut them down. I haven't asked them for a nickel for Stillwaters because I'm not directly affected by it, right? It's not that I can't walk in there and say, you know, but I think we're well over $15,000 down from previous years on the day that they fell. It's a lot. It's a lot of money, right?
Quick follow-up, Mr. Chair, through you. Thanks again for that. In your written submission, you had I believe that the draft film policy that we're going to be discussing shortly addresses much of what you're saying and has the potential of dealing a lot. But you had specifically, amongst other things, you had specifically in your written submission had said, we request that no applications for filming be accepted or approved until the County of Brant film policy is approved and enacted. I wanted to just clarify.
Sure.
Like you said, you don't care about filming in somebody's field. You don't care if
of course
the community center in Scotland. You are specifically talking about downtowns.
Yeah, like, and I also understand how that can be interpreted 10 million different ways. I get that, but I think this is a big one, right? I don't know any business owners in St. George and how they'll be affected if filming was shut down. You would probably understand better when they, you know, so I don't know. All I know is here.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I guess for the sake of trying to make things easier for now, yeah, if we could talk about downtown Paris, just because that's who I'm hearing from, right? So that's who I'm so yes, obviously if somebody wants to film in a farmer's field, we're not overly concerned about that. But the direct effect of the businesses downtown and the community as a whole trying to get through here. But yes, downtown for right now while we're taking a look. If St. George wants to be involved as well, I don't know. Does Burford have a BIA? I don't know.
Through the chair, I would say,
sorry.
With or without a BIA, I think there's still merit to saying let's be cautious about anything regarding downtowns.
Yes.
Whether there's a BIA or not.
Yes.
Because they are the lifeblood of
right.
the region.
What I meant by is there a BIA, would they want to be involved in the conversation? But yes, anything that has a drastic effect on a number of businesses all at once.
Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, through the chair to Matt, I can speak to it from St. George's. St. George loves filming.
Yeah.
They don't. I mean, we have one street that has 11 stores, as you know.
Yeah.
And so we have an alternative. We have a detour route that takes people off Main Street. So it's not, but it's. I think different film companies. I mean, I've had more than 6, I think 8, film companies shoot at my house.
Yeah.
And some of them are in and out, and everything's perfect. You would never know that they're there. They're very professional. Murdoch Mysteries, for one.
Yeah.
Those kinds of people. Handmaid's Tale, very professional.
Yeah.
Lots of money. But then there has been funny little production companies where things go missing and things get broken, and they don't show up on time, and they work all night. But I think they're all very, and I know there's one too down Branchton Road there, Handmaid's Tale, the Tanner underpass there. They did a lot of work there, and there's not many neighbors to bother there. So I think when we do work on this film thing, it needs to stay. Like, we have to talk about it in a bigger scale. You people here have a different situation because you do have a bottleneck. You have two rivers, and it does mess everything up. But half the problem with dealing with filming, as far as I've ever known, is the fact that especially series, they can't release too much. They can't tell you too much because,
That's right.
because they're in a series. I mean, you know,
That's right.
they don't even want you to know really who they are because so it's hard to get their hours. It's hard to get what they're going to do. They might want to come at 2 o'clock and then it rains and they come at 4 o'clock. So it's just really hard to commit them to their own contract. So I hope that when we do our strategy, we don't come down too hard on them because it is good money for a lot of churches, parking lots. This happens to be a municipal parking lot, so you lose. But if that had been a church parking lot, they win, you do.
That's right.
So lots of good does come out of filming in the county of Brant, and it's a very desirable place to film. So
I agree, and that's why my thought isn't my whole thought isn't no, let's stop this altogether. My thought is just really thinking about what it looks like to real folks on the ground who are trying to make a living down here when these things get shut down. You know, that's all. It's only and when you look at a lot of the problems that came from Motorheads, which honestly, in the grand scheme of things, weren't the problems were the direct problems from being here and certain things like that. I get it, but then you know, somebody was saying to me that they couldn't find parking because all the Motorheads people were not parking where they're supposed to be, and you know, Zach and Olga had dealt with it. But you know, for me, I just kind of smile and I'm like, you know what? Every day, you can't have every single employee that's working for you do the right thing all day long. You can't expect somebody to do that, right? I mean, I live with it myself. You know, you can have the best people on planet Earth, and there's just going to be a few who are just going to do something different. You can't to expect that to be perfect is impossible, and you'll never be able to police that. In fact, they will never be able to police that. It's more just, and for me, I'm thinking it's a pick my battles kind of a situation here, where obviously it's important enough for me to be here, to me, but it's also important enough for a lot of the businesses that are downtown that are afraid to say anything. They'll say something to me, but they don't want to make a big deal out of it. They don't want to say anything, but they will talk about what happens to their sales when our street's closed. And for a lot of them, they're a couple, you know, if admittedly we're big enough and have been around long enough that for us those days they're not gonna take us out. But for some of them, it causes sleepless nights when they have a sales day that's that low. They require sales every single day to keep operating. And I know it's hard. I know it's hard for some of them to speak to that, and I know it's hard for you to even understand. I wouldn't understand what you go through when you make these decisions, and you wouldn't understand what they go through. You know, it's not a perfect system. I get it. It's just this is my opportunity to explain to you how it really does affect real people and real businesses, and if we can try to avoid downtown as much as we possibly can, that would be really appreciated.
I move that we refer Matt's delegation and request to section 8 point whatever.
Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so now we're bringing up 8.1 to directly after. So Zach. Whenever you're ready.
Yes, through the chair, I thought I'd just make a couple statements here before we discuss the draft policy. But from the staff perspective, we've always understood that the direction is we want filming activity in the county of Brant, and that we're here to facilitate it. That back in 2020, council approved a draft film strategy, and within that strategy was a number of actions for county staff to undertake to make sure we are kind of rock solid as a film destination. A big piece of that is having a film policy. Is trying to do this stuff without a film policy, does put us in a bind, as Mr. Cummings did explain. If we have a clear film policy, we have that opportunity to minimize impacts to businesses and residents. We have the opportunity to provide those clear expectations to film companies when they want to come to the county of Brant. And it kind of empowers staff to have the right tools to process applications, because right now we use what is called the SEAT team to review committees. And, it's kind of you work through different departments to kind of get to your end goal. The intent of the draft film policy is to kind of flip that around and have all the expectations, have the permissions built into one policy. And that's what we've kind of come up here. And it's just as a draft today. Our intent is to go back and do more consultation and get more input, because we have the opportunity to specifically kind of spell out what does make sense for our downtown communities. And with that, we're looking at 9 or 10 bylaws we'd have to update. So it is quite a bit of work to kind of bring this back in final form, but we definitely want to have some additional consultation. And I will just make a comment. We have Motorheads. This is their 4th block. We're expecting them back for one more block in July. And, our understanding is when you're dealing with someone the size of Motorheads, that they're able to, provide that compensation when you are using a business, but also if you're impacted, you can approach them and have that conversation about compensation. So we're doing our best to manage it with the tools we have, but really for us to move forward as a film destination in the county of Brant, we need a strong policy.
Okay. Questions? Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Zach.
First of all, before we get into questions here, can I get, we've got a recommendation. Can I get a mover to get it on the floor? Councillor McAlpine, Councillor Bell. All in favor of that? No, don't go ahead. I take that back. Go Councillor House.
Okay.
It's on the floor.
It's on the floor. We can talk about it.
Right.
So questions for Zach. Thanks for bringing this forward. Reading through this, it's clear that we've learned a lot in a short period of time, and the current filming production is, I would say, accelerated our learning, and what I read in this report seemed to address many of the concerns that Matt Cummings brought up a few minutes ago. Specifically, I was happy to see section 2.16, which referenced areas that are sensitive to disruption, and that's downtown, downtown Paris, and I would say other downtowns potentially too within the county. And then section 18 specifically talks about downtowns. So I was happy to see that staff is bringing in some of the concerns that we need to look at there. And if anyone from the BIA hasn't had an opportunity to see the draft policy, I would encourage them to have a look. My question for Zach is, you talk about a finalized film policy will come back to a future policy development committee meeting. My question is, what kind of timeline are you looking at between now and then, and consultation that you want to do? And then what happens to our day-to-day decisions in between now and then? Because as Matt was saying, staff needs a pretty clear rule book to be able to work day by day. And as I am understanding, there's constant interest in the county from the filming community. So could you just talk about that timing, please?
Yeah, through the chair to you, Councillor Howes. I think certainly we would really like to bring this back in September at that policy committee meeting. We would be asking a lot to do some consultation, the dead of summer, and, kind of go back, do that internal staff review again, because, we want to make sure our legal team looks at this, and, EMS, fire, all those players. So I think September, is plausible to kind of turn this around and bring it in. And I think, if council supports this kind of approach, we can, start to point to it as kind of the expectation moving forward. Should we get more inquiries, we do have a few other inquiries for the county, but none in a downtown area at this point in time, outside of Block 5 of Motorheads when they come back.
Councilor Holmes, you good with that? Any other questions? Councilor Oakley?
When appropriate, I have an amendment.
Okay. Any other, Mayor Bailey, then Councilor Chambers.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I think I heard a lot of complaints over the last month and a half. I think where we're going to have problems, and when I say problems, I mean explosive, visible problems, is going to be to do with flags. It's not. It's in most people's eyes in the county. It's not cool to have flags other than Canadian flags on the cenotaph. We did get some approval from the Legion after the fact, but we had the same problem in St. George. There were, you wake up, there's an American flag on the cenotaph, and people lose their noodles. And those are the people that we're going to see visibly, give us troubles. I mean, the financial part and everything, and not everyone sees that. Not everybody knows that. But when you get people climbing flagpoles to rip down flags and stuff like that, so I think we really, when you are doing this, please take extra time to talk about flags, because that's what's going to make that. This is the climate right now. People are very angry, and this is an American flag, but it could be any flag, and I think we're going to be in trouble with stuff like that. Little things like that we don't see coming are going to cause us the greatest problems, I think, moving forward.
Would I be able to respond to that? Just through the chair to you, Mayor Bailey. Just with the Motorheads, I will point out that we did seek permission before removing those flags, and actually they provided a donation to the Legion to help with upkeep. But I think, lesson learned on our part, let's get the message out there in advance that this is happening in our community, that, we're Ironwood, Pennsylvania this week, and who knows what in a few weeks. But I think, it was certainly lesson learned from our perspective in communications that the more time we can get that message out there and kind of let the community be aware, it does help.
Councilor Chambers.
I just have a kind of a logistics question, just maybe satisfy my own curiosity, but I'm going to ask how that relates to the policy. When I came to the meeting today, the street down here is all blocked off for parking with pylons, and all their trucks are in the municipal parking lot. So my question is, do they just do that, or do they get permission to do that? And if they get permission to do that, who gives them permission to do that?
Yeah, through the chair to you, Councilor Chambers. So we take in the seed application, and then with that application, we start to liaise with various departments. So in this case, use of road, use of parking stalls does go to our road operations for comment and review. And under our current policy approach, they are then submitting a public works permit and getting that permit. So they're paying for each of those spots, and all those spots have been reviewed by the roads team to ensure we're not creating some sort of issue.
So the permission then is given by the roads public works department through a permit.
Yeah, through the chair to you, Councilor Chambers. That is correct. Yeah.
So if they applied to close the downtown parking Grand River Street, it would be up to the public works department to approve that permit.
Yes, through the chair to you, Councilor Chambers. Yeah, it happens through that permit, but what we're suggesting, once we have this overarching policy, we can kind of maybe spell out when it is acceptable to do that versus when it isn't, or a volume, or those types of things.
so my last question, Mr. Chairman, is, so presently, the decision is made by Public Works through a policy that would be the document that whoever gives permission in the future would rely on.
Yeah, we worked this through our roads operation for comment and review, and I'm not sure if the director of roads wants to speak on that as well, but since you're
I
here.
guess the point I'm getting at, Mr. Chairman, is that the policy is the guiding document. The permissions is given as a result of the policy, but I think what the delegation was indicating is that there has to be some kind of input in specific cases before that permission is given, even if there is a policy, because it impacts their businesses. And I'm just thinking off the top of my head that the simple policy would be, do not close the parking in downtown Paris, period. Like there's no reason why those trucks over there can't be parked somewhere else, so the people wanting to go to Wincy Mills or to the stores along the street can park there. I mean, I think that's what the delegation is indicating, and that has to be addressed in the policy, but sometimes the best policy is to say no.
Yeah, I'll just say through the chair to you, Councilor Chambers, we're had lots of conversations about motorheads and what actually needs to be down here, and this is what was indicated to us. This is what they need for their production, so they have to keep this stuff close to the equipment and be able to run cables and all that type of stuff. The bulk of their parking is actually at the Paris Fairgrounds, where they keep their crew cars and whatnot. So they are trying to stay out of the downtown as much as they can, but the reality is that a production of this size requires parking and needs it close to where they're filming. And this is kind of where we are in trying to find the right balance for this.
Councilor Miller, then Councilor Garneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Zach. Zach, reading the report, you can't really put a price on the economic benefits to Brant at this time. Is that correct?
Through the chair to you, Councilor Miller, I think once we're done filming, the idea is we kind of come back with that big picture of what was the actual impacts. But right now, it's just too premature to kind of provide that information, unfortunately.
Okay. It would bother me that we go through all this trouble and then we find out at the end of the day we actually come out negative on it. Any thoughts, Zach, because you mentioned using the revenue from filming to pay for our application to that filming group in Ontario. Any thoughts to creating a fund to assist anybody that's had a loss of revenues? Because Matt mentioned Amazon's doing the Motorhead. They paid for cobblestone, no problem. But there's probably other businesses that have to be suffering some negative economic consequences. Any thoughts to maybe creating a fund paid for by the film people so that if somebody suffers a loss, they can apply to that?
Yeah, to the chair, to you, Councilor Miller, it is my understanding that motorheads will have that discussion with compensation if you're impacted, but it is on the business to go and have that conversation. And based on our kind of policy research, it kind of indicates it's best for the municipality to stay out of that conversation on compensation. But certainly we could take a look at if anyone's doing this type of thing as well.
Okay, then the last question through Mr. Chair. I'll go back to what Councilor House said earlier. Some films would have bigger disruptions than others. So if we were filming at the Scotland Community Center, probably not a whole big disruption. How do we charge companies for this? Do we charge more? Councilor Chambers talked about maybe not banning parking at all, but if they did ban parking in downtown Paris, do we charge them more for that service, for that disruption?
Yeah, to the chair, to you, Councilor Miller, our intent is to come, if council approves this direction, that we come back with new user fees on the use of county resources such as parking such as road uses, to generate some additional revenue. We do get, film permit revenue. There's revenue through various rental agreements, revenue through the public works permit, but we could definitely take a bigger look at, increasing user fees or establishing new ones for filming purposes.
Thank you, Zach. I think you got your work cut out for you.
Councilor Garno.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilor Miller kind of headed off some of where I was going, but I wanted to pick up on what both Councilor Chambers said and our delegate with regards to the impacts on businesses and not everyone feeling that they were in a position to speak up. And I hear what Zach's saying, that typically the municipality doesn't get involved in those roles of compensation or the conversation about compensation. But what I'm also hearing is that we bring in revenue, and I think we have to be mindful that we're the ones who have the continuing relationships with the businesses. And that after the movie company or whoever has moved along, we still need to have a constructive go forward. And I wouldn't want through all of this for especially the small businesses and the new businesses, and I am a very small business myself without capacity to take on additional things most of the time, that we don't inadvertently put those folks at greater risk because we've said yes to something. And so I guess where I'm going with that is looking to see that we have a mechanism that if something comes to our attention because we're in a greater position of stability and security to say, hey, you should really check in on shop such and such here, that we're not just saying that isn't our role, because I understand Matt has had some folks come to him that maybe wouldn't have, like, I can't imagine talking to Amazon as a small business owner. That's an incredibly intimidating conversation to have. And I think back to about 6 weeks ago, we were out for dinner at one of the establishments across the road, and our server, unknowingly, not realizing I was a counselor, commented that some of the young ladies who worked under her, because they had to park so far away at the end of the night at their shift, felt unsafe walking to their vehicles. But they didn't want to say anything to the manager of the establishment because they felt they were at risk in that. So I think we just need to make sure that we've got the right ears to the ground, that if there's an advocacy role we can play at some point in this, just to make sure that that's not lost and we don't say this isn't what we do, because we are in a position of trust with the community in a different way.
Well said, yeah. Okay, we're going to go to Councilor Oakley in a second, and I really hate to do this because it is sunshine, but can I ask somebody to just pull that, because the sun is in a car window and it's going right in my face and I can't see, and if it goes off my head, then nobody will be able to see.
It's okay, it's automatic.
Is it?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh. Who's doing that? Okay.
Josh.
Oh, that's perfect, even right there. That's great. Phew, hey, you guys look good now. Okay. All right, Councilor Oakley.
Through the chair, just hearing the conversation, I'm going to introduce my amendment just to see if this can help kind of guide some of the concerns here. So I'd like to amend the third clause about consulting the businesses to the following. And that the County of Brant Council direct the formation of the Filming Strategy Ad Hoc Steering Committee with following composition, membership each to be delegated by the relevant bodies. 1 member of council, 1 member of the Paris BIA, 1 member of the St. George Business Association, 1 member of the Burford Area Business Association, 1 member of the County Brant Chamber of Commerce, 1 member of the Brantford Brant Chamber of Commerce, 1 citizen member of the County Brant Tourism Committee, and 1 member of FICO. Sorry, 1 second here. What is going on here? Sorry. With the ad hoc committee's purpose to collaborate and consult with staff, such that staff may report back to council to give a recommendation and direction for the County Brant filming policy in a future 2024 Administration and Operations Committee. Then the committee will reconvene after 1 year of the official filming policy being in place to provide feedback, after which the ad hoc committee will be disbanded. If I may speak to it.
Do we have a seconder? Councilor House. Did everybody catch that? Councilor Chambers?
Quite honestly, I didn't catch it all. It's about 3 paragraphs long. I'm not going to ask that it be read over again, but the rationale, I'd like to hear that.
Councilor Oakley, speak to it.
Certainly. So the rationale comes from both conversation with the Downtown Paris BA and also the County Brant Chamber of Commerce. There's concern with just having it be a normal consultation process. Sometimes people things can fall through the cracks. And I heard a lot of positive feedback from our direction with Arts, Culture, and Heritage Steering Committee, having those relevant members of the community having a direct sort of committee structure to work through. So I felt that would be potentially the best way of us ensuring we get all of the relevant business advocacy groups and associations to be able to get in the room, as well with a member of the tourism committee and with a member of sort of the film coalition to sort of hash out some of these specifics on the filming policy when it comes to things like what the BIA wants to see with downtown parking, so on and so forth. I felt this would be an effective way of getting that consultation.
Councilor Chambers, did you want to say? Okay. Any other discussion on that? Councilor Chambers and Councilor Coleman.
Just a question. Was that run by staff? Is this a staff generated, or is staff aware of this? And does staff approve, or does staff have problems with the direction?
To the chair, to Councilor Chambers, yeah, we're certainly aware. I think the biggest issue might be timing and pulling that group together to have those conversations. But outside of that, it's really along the same vein as what we want to do, is have additional consultation with this.
Councilor Coleman.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, and my only comment, as a negative comment, is I think the committee is too large. I think it could be a little smaller and more direct to the situation, and we got to deal with this situation in downtown Paris right now. I was just approached by a business owner just before I came in here. He did call it a gong show. So it needs to be done, but it needs to be done sooner than later. But I think if we get too large a committee, everybody's going to be bickering with each other.
Any other questions, comments? Councilor Chamber?
Yeah, and I'm not going to support the amendment for that reason. It becomes cumbersome, and I think staff is capable of pulling forward together. At a certain point, an ad hoc or a liaison committee would have a great value, but in this case, I think it just adds to the confusion and will impact staff's effort to get this thing in place.
Councilor Kyle?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you to Zach. So I guess my question is, if we were to not go with the amendment as Councilor Oakley has suggested, what is your existing plan for that consultation, and how would it differ from striking a committee?
To the chair, to you, Councilor Kyle, I think it would just certainly be just less formal, where staff either sets up meetings or attends various business association meetings to discuss the policy in length, and then kind of take that back, review it, and then circulate it one more time before moving on. So it's, again, I think it's all in the same vein, where we just didn't suggest a formal committee.
You good with that, Councilor Kyle? Councilor House?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if it might be a friendly amendment to, rather than direct staff to include every one on that list, to adjust it to say that, to ask staff to consider the participation of the list.
I'm just going to jump in here first. If we read the recommendation of 8.1, it says, and the staff consult the members of the business community, including the Downtown Paris Business Association. That's fine, but I think it's in the recommendation that staff are going to consult whichever members, because if I look at that list as well, if not that they care or not care, but it doesn't really affect to get somebody from Burford if something's happening in St. George, vice versa. So I think here we're leaving it to staff that if there's something happening in Paris, they're going to connect with whoever that affects. If there's something happening in Burford, they're going to connect to whoever that affects. And I think that the recommendation there hits that when it says staff consult the members of the business community. I'm just throwing that out there. I think I understand where you were going, and I understand the fact that we do need more consultation. And I think Zach has admitted that, yeah, that's the direction they're going. But I think this recommendation has that in there, the fact that wherever it's required, staff is going to pull in for input. Councillor Kyle?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, another question that just kind of came to mind. So this policy, though, is one policy that would be used for any filming project, regardless of where in the county it would happen, correct?
Yeah, to the chair, to you, Councillor Kyle, it would be one policy, but within the policy, we would create specific provisions for each community. If that's, the feedback we hear, or, it could be the same provisions for three. We just have to have that conversation. Yeah.
Okay, so then quick follow-up.
Sure, and then we gotta, because we're kind of getting off the amended motion here, but I'll go ahead.
Yeah, no, my point just being that we just need to be wary about narrowing it down to just strictly Paris if we're talking about a broader policy. That's my only comment.
100%. Okay, so to your amendment.
Just through the chair, I just like to speak that I will still be in favor of my amendment. It was a direct request from several of the affected organizations to have an official committee rather than just informal consultation. So given that direct direction from those affected groups, I will still be supporting my own amendment.
Okay, so we've got an amendment on the table here. Everybody's clear on that? We've got it seconded. I'm going to call the vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? Okay, so the amendment has been defeated. Now I'm going to call the vote on the recommendation as is. Does anybody need it read, or is everybody good? Okay, all those in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Zach. Okay, so we're going to circle back now. After a point, we're going to circle back to section number 5, which is adoption of the previous minutes. Can I get a mover? Mayor Bailey, Councillor Miller, questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just an update to the committee in regard of the proposed merger of the Brant County Health Unit with Alderman Norfolk Health Unit. The merger business case was submitted to the Ministry of Health and is being considered.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so moving on to section 7, we've got a few consent items to be approved. The first being RPT-0313-24, an updated delegation of authority bylaw. I'm not sure if we need to speak to that. There is a recommendation there. Can I get a mover? Councillor Coleman, seconder. Councillor Bell. Any questions on that report? Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure who I'm going to speak to, but staff, whoever, I guess it's Cheryl. Yeah. The question really is, maybe it's best placed to Alison as well. Is this a comprehensive list of the delegated authorities that you would like, or is there more that you would like and you're kind of hesitant to ask council for approval?
Thank you, through the chair. The process that we used for this was it was circulated multiple times through all of SMT to invite any revisions that they wanted for authorities they were seeking. So that's what you have before you. So as of today, I believe this is the full list, but we sort of do a review and keep a running list for like the next round of updates in a year or two.
Any other questions on that? Councillor Coleman, or Councillor Chambers, sorry. I'm looking at you. I like his shirt though.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm just wondering, Cheryl may know this, with regard to applications pursuant to the Planning Act, such as a zoning application change, is there a way to delegate authority to have zoning change applications approved by staff without going through the process that we normally go through? And I'll give you an example, and that's with with regard to a couple examples, such as demolition of houses and temporary use until such time as the house is built. That currently is, to do that, you have to have a zoning requirement, a zoning change. And to go through that, it takes time that perhaps is time that could be used by the applicant to be doing what they want to do rather than wait for a 2 or 3 month approval process, which in most cases is just going to be approved anyway.
Thank you, and through the chair. So I can't actually specifically answer that off the top of my head. What I can say is that the planning revisions that are in here did come from Pam, and per the Planning Act. So I would expect that if it could have been delegated, she would have included it, but I can confirm and get back to you.
Any other questions on that report? Okay, we've got a recommendation moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 7.12 RPT-0173-24 housekeeping updates to the parks use bylaw. Recommendation, can I get a mover? Councillor Garneau. Second, Councillor Oakley. Questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 713 RPT-0312-24 naming of the South Picnic Pavilion Lions Park. Recommendation, can I get a mover? Councillor Howes. Seconder, Councillor McAlpine. Questions on this report? Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, not so much a question, but I did note in the feedback from the online engagement that there was a comment from someone who I'm assuming is newer to the community with respect to having directional names on some of our facilities, as opposed to someone who they maybe don't know. I think there's maybe opportunity for both. Perhaps we could be just a little bit more clear where something is located, in addition to the names that we give them.
Okay, good input. Any other questions on that? Okay, we'll be very happy to call the vote on this one. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. 7.14 RPT-0307-24, the renaming of Oakland Track. Recommendation, mover please. Councillor Coleman. Seconder, Councillor Garneau. Questions? Councillor Coleman.
Not a question, Mr. Chair, but a comment, and I don't have a problem with naming the Oakland Forest Track after Clayton. I've brought this up at least 3 times and maybe 4 times. We have done nothing yet for former Mayor Eddie. And we keep going and naming, and I don't have anything against Darren. Great guy. Did a great job running the sports complex. And I don't have anything against Clayton, as I said. But I'm a little bit tired of waiting for something for Ron Eddy.
Duly noted. Any other questions on that report? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 7.1.5 RPT-0340-24, the award of the OPS RFP for the design and tender contract for administration of bridges project. Recommendation, mover, Mayor Bailey. Seconder, Councillor Bell. Questions on that report? Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's just a clarification. My understanding is that this is just the tendering, the design, the tendering, and the contract administration. It's not the actual building work. And maybe staff could just clarify that.
Go ahead.
Through the chair. Yeah, that's correct. This is just for the design in contract admin.
So just to follow up then, Mark, does that then represent a change to the way we do business? Is this reflecting the fact this is a more efficient way of getting the tendering, the design and tendering done?
I think this is pretty in line with how we've done it in the past. So we get the design done the year before and then tender early in the new year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. 716 RPT-0334-24 Strategic Asset Management Policy Update. Can I get a mover? Councillor Oakley, seconder. Councillor Coleman. Questions on that report? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question on the roads, question on the bridges. The road system adequacy, we're shooting for 70%. In average condition, we're shooting for 70. I don't know if that's 70 is 70% or that's just out of 100 or what that is. So can somebody explain what the average condition 70 is?
Who can speak to that?
It's on page 234 of our report, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mark.
Through the chair, I'm sorry, I'd actually have to get back to you on that. This was Mark Eby's report, so I don't know all the fine details of it.
Okay, a couple more questions since you're not prepared. And I apologize, Mark. I didn't know Mark Eby wouldn't be here. The 70% or the 70 level, is that set by us, the municipality?
I believe that is set by us in line with the municipal standards.
And then if we say we want to improve it, that's going to cost money.
That's right.
Yeah, it's cost more. Okay, then I want to ask, what is the current adequacy and condition of our roads now? Are we at that 70 level?
I believe we're just below that. I don't know the number exactly, but we're slightly below it. Working towards it year by year.
Okay, so we may see a little bump up on the budget. Okay, and then the bridges, you have something called the BCI Bridge Condition Index. I thought that was a high school, but it's Bridge Condition Index, 0 to 100. I didn't read in there that we have a target in Brant for the BCI. Do we have a target like we do for the roads? The roads we want to set at 70. The BCI 0 to 100 score. Do we have a target number for bridges?
I believe it's similar, but I will look into that and I can get back to you on that. Okay. I believe it's similar to the roads.
And the last question, if I or a resident want to look online and I want to see what the BCI a particular bridge is that information available on our website? Is that public information?
It's not available on the website, but every 2 years we do those OSIM reports. Those can be made available on request, yeah.
Okay, but the OSIM, I already said, is not, it doesn't translate directly into that BCI number for each bridge. And maybe we could ask Mark Eby if is that something that somebody could find out?
It would be. They could inquire and we could provide that to people. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Maybe we can get the follow-up at council or on a Friday file for those questions.
Yeah, good idea.
Because something like this, I don't think you can understate the importance. I'm sure Calgary's finding that out now with their water pipes.
So you'll look after that follow-up then?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Any other questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, 7.2, consent items to be received. Does anybody want any of the three pulled? Seeing none, looking for a recommendation to move all three. Councillor Coleman, Mayor Bailey, questions on any of them? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, 8.1 we've done. We're going to move on to 8.2, which is RPT 0332-24, the Main Branch Library Public Project Update. Get a mover to get it on the floor. Councillor Howes, seconder. Councillor Bell. Questions on that report? Councillor Miller, then Councillor Howes.
The increase from 37.7 to 41.1. Not sure what page in the report, but it says there were some things missing in that previous 37.7 million estimate. I didn't see those items laid out. What was missing in that previous estimate? That's added 4 million to the cost.
Through the chair. So I think further down there's a table that does break out what adds up to that 41.1, and you'll see items like the unfunded purchase of the KFC property, non-refundable HST is $500,000, some additional design fees.
Councilor Miller?
Yeah, so through Chair to Mark, sorry, no, I see it broken down, but were those items missing originally in that first lower estimate?
That's correct.
That's what
They weren't included in the 37.7.
Okay, so the non-recoverable HST $500,000, the purchase of the property gets us up to about $1 million. Okay, like I said, I didn't see a breakdown I did see a breakdown that added up to $4 million, but it's not there. Okay, thank you. Allison?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. What I had asked Mr. Maxwell to do in this report is start to get council closer to an all-in cost for the project. We've been talking about the sort of design of the project in the past, and as we move closer, we're trying to get to what our all-in costs are. So it's not going to be just for the construction. There's all the ancillary things as there are with any project. So I've asked for some of those things to be included as they become available, and obviously those estimates get refined as we get closer to the date.
Thank you. Councilor House?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have 3 questions, if that's okay. Or do you want me to just do one and then, or do you want me to do them all?
Let's start with one.
Okay. Through you to Mark, and this follows up a little bit on Councilor Miller's question. It was good to see the furniture and fixtures added into this. I remember that was a question that had come up in past discussions about this. Do you know if there's a development charge, an opportunity for that $1.5 million to be covered through development charges?
Well, I think there's a number in the development charge background study already that just kind of lumps all of this project as one line item. So if that can include FF&E, furnishings, fixtures, and equipment, it can be part of that as well.
Okay.
Right? It's all part of the one big project.
All right, and we're going to see a future.
Hang on just one second. Heather, you want to add to that?
There is also some development charges for furniture and equipment that is a separate item. So they do have 2 different components. The furniture is a much smaller percentage that's attributed to the DCs, but there is a number for that.
Okay. Okay, so we'll see more details on that in a future meeting before we get to any final decisions. Do you want to keep going?
Number 2.
Okay. We've been working through detailed design, and there's been some cost efficiencies, and there's been some adjustments of, what the outside of the one part of the building is going to be made out of, and some cost savings through that. Can you explain the process? So we've gone through a Class C estimate. Between now and when it actually goes out to tender, if the architect is still working on adjustments or details that will help bring the cost down, what's the process for how that gets factored in before it goes to tender?
Through the chair. So the architect and the construction management company will be working on a Class B estimate between now and tendering. So that should be available in July, August before tendering.
Okay. All right.
We do feel like we're honing in on exactly where it's going to be. Okay. We received the initial Class C estimate. I think it was $36.4 million. We spent 2 or 3 weeks combing through it and finding some efficiencies, but ultimately it did just bring it down to $36.2 million. So $200,000 of savings. So there may be some opportunity to find a few more savings, but I don't think it's going to change drastically.
Okay, thank you. And then what I think is my last question. I'm not completely understanding the benefit of tendering the heritage portion first. Don't get me wrong, the sooner the better is on my mind, especially regarding the heritage element. But I don't see where council will be able to make green light, red light decision until council sees both. So can you walk me through, help me understand that better? What are the pros and cons of having the actual cost of the heritage portion available to us before we know the other part?
Through the chair. This is something that we've just been discussing as a team for the past month or so, and that was all in light of finding some new leaks in the spring this past couple months. So it wasn't so much to get the heritage number so that council has more information, it was just to get a head start on the heritage work ahead of the winter that's ahead of us. So I think in our last discussion, it sounded like the final design might be available in September, maybe October, but there's an opportunity to pull the heritage work into a tender by the end of July. So we thought there were some advantages to getting that going during the winter season coming up ahead of us and getting it going in advance of the rest of the project, which might, you never know, if it gets delayed a month or two, then it just pushes us through more of the winter without protecting the existing building.
Councillor Bell?
I have a number of questions, so you stop me when you think I've spoken for long enough.
3 is a number on the table right now.
Okay, I've got 6, so I've got to go twice. Mark, we now have a Class C estimate. Typically, what quality of estimate will you have before you go out for tender?
So our next estimate will be a Class B estimate, and that's based on 50% contract document final design. I believe that's getting close to like within 5 to 10% of actual costs.
So I'm not as familiar with Canadian projects as I am with projects elsewhere, but my understanding is that the class of estimates used for construction of building sites, typically a Class A is used. That's a pre-tender estimate. But it leads me on to ask the question of what form of contract are we going to let, and what will be the level of uncertainty once we receive the tenders? And I'm speaking now with a little bit of experience from John Noble Home, where we thought we had more certainty on the tendered price, and we've seen that escalate significantly. So will we get a lump sum price, which is at 100% coverage when we get tenders back, or will there be remaining uncertainty?
Through the chair. So we are working through a construction management model. So it won't be a lump sum price, all-in contract. It'll be a number of subcontracts through CSL. But there will be some uncertainty working with this old building. But I still expect that we'll have some surprises for sure.
So when we let the contract, will there be elements of the project which are not fully understood in terms of cost?
There will be. There will be some cash allowances to cover some of those unknowns and contingencies as well.
Thank you for that one. To Councillor Howe's point about the advancing the work on the heritage part of the project, I find that difficult to swallow. I think until we actually approve the whole project, I think it would be inappropriate to approve a part of the project, because later on we may decide we don't want to do the whole project, but then you kind of, you're down the track then. It becomes more and more difficult not to undo something that should have been undone at the beginning. Question on the cost of financing. You mentioned it in the report, Mark. What do we think the cost of financing will be? Because that will be in addition to the 41.1 million.
Through the chair, I don't want to put Heather on the spot, but we had discussed this a little bit. I don't know if she's generated a number yet or not.
So we do have some new numbers. Looks like our total project annual debt servicing cost would be about 1.9 million at this point.
1.9, thank you. And that's assuming that we debenture 12 million, is that correct?
It assumes debenturing the tax levy portion, portion of the development charges, and a portion of the furniture and equipment.
Yeah, I think 1.9 sounds incredibly low, but there we go. Moving on to a technical thing, I notice you're going to close the Dumfries slip lane. Can you say more about that and what that means practically to traffic flows?
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah. So from a traffic standpoint, from the operations side, we thought that would offer some advantages, knowing that there's going to be a lot more traffic heading, I guess, east on Church Street, pulling off to visit the library, or turning around the block to get to Burwell. So with more traffic turning on Church, we thought that causes a bit of motorist confusion, and one way to get rid of that motorist confusion is to just close that slip lane entirely and force traffic to go up to the main intersection to turn right.
Sorry, if I may, Mr. Chair, what do you mean by the main intersection, Mark?
Sorry, the intersection of Dumfries and right in front of the Bockhut Center. So the main intersection right by the slip lane, we were just proposing to close the slip lane.
So maybe I'm just misunderstanding the slip lane. I see the slip lane coming in from Dumfries and then continuing down Dumfries till you hit Grand River Street North. Is that the slip lane you're talking about?
That's the slip lane I'm talking about. Sorry, I probably should have provided a diagram.
Yeah, so I'd be interested, what will maybe you can share within a Friday file what the structure of that intersection will look like now, because it is a bit complicated already.
It is complicated, and we think with that additional traffic turning down Church, that people using that slip lane will just cause a lot of confusion with other traffic making movements through that intersection.
Two more questions, if that.
Go ahead.
Can you update us on where we are with grants and fundraising?
Sure. There's a little bit of information in the report about the FCM grant. So we're preparing the application, but we are looking for council input on whether we move forward with this project as the preferred candidate or the new North Paris Fire Hall as the preferred candidate. We had heard from FCM representatives that it would be wise for us to just put one project forward because we'll likely only be successful on one. But we look to council for some direction on that.
Councillor Bell?
Yeah, so that question is almost a separate question, I'll let the other members of the committee talk to that. But even if we get that grant, it only gets us, I think, 1.6 million or 1.5 million in maximum grants. We were looking to get 5. Where do we get the other 3.5 from?
That's correct. So I believe the maximum grant from FCM for the sustainability piece is 1.5 million, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I know that Kelly is investigating other grant opportunities related, I believe, to the heritage aspect of the building.
And my experience of seeking grants, certainly from the federal government and also from the Trillium Foundation, is you need to actually seek the money before you start doing the work. So where are we in terms of progressing grant applications? So maybe Kelly is the person to answer that.
I think Allison wants to jump in on that.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, that's sort of outside the scope of what Mark's duties are, but I understand Kelly will be bringing a report forward in the next month.
Okay.
That will detail all of that.
And Alison, will that include fundraising as well?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it will.
Thank you. Final question. Timeline, Mark. When can you expect to come with tendered prices?
To the chair. So that does depend on how we approach it, whether we're doing the heritage first or the whole package all at once. If we do the heritage piece first, our architectural team has said they'll have a package ready for tendering in August, which means we'll have pricing in September. But that would use up a lot of their resources, so that pushes the rest of the job out probably to October or November for tendering. If we keep it all packaged together, I believe they are still shooting for a September tender of the whole thing.
Which would mean coming to this, or coming to council in
October.
October. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions on that report? One second. First goers. Okay, back to you, Councillor House.
Thanks. Through the chair. Just Councillor Bell's last question about the timeline. Is there any downside to receiving the heritage tenders sooner in terms of the quotes being valid by the time we get the second tender results?
Through the chair, no, I don't believe so. No.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Councillor Coleman?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll throw this opposite what Councillor Howe just suggested. Is there any chance of doing just the library part without doing the heritage part first?
Through the chair, I think that would be very challenging. We have to do the work on the heritage building to make it work as the library, just for where we join in the new building. I think it'd be very challenging.
Follow up?
Follow up, Mr. Chair. What if the library was a separate identity?
I think that would throw off the whole design as it is right now.
I know.
I don't know if you want to comment to that or not.
I believe that would mean that it's an entire redesign.
Redesign of the project, yeah.
And the library was planning to use quite a bit of the heritage area. There was some overlap.
Right.
So it would change the programming as well.
Okay, so just anybody else? Question, Councillor Bell?
I think there is an outstanding question we need to give Mark guidance on, and that's, do you give the FCM vote to the fire station, or do you give it to the library Borkut Centre? And I would appreciate to hear what staff have to say in terms of how we should be guided.
Yeah, that's part of that recommendation as well.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I would suggest maybe to have Gerald Lee or Sean from BME to come up. They know much more about this grant, I think, than anybody, so I think they could speak to it.
Okay. Daryl, Sean, welcome.
Thank you very much, and through the chair, in terms of the two projects that were identified as part of Mark's report, it appears they both qualify for funding under the program. What we have is really a timing issue with FCM. So FCM opens consideration for applications on April the 1st, and they leave those open for the entire year. If there's a funding challenge, or if all the funds have been granted, they would close that off and you would kick into another funding year, so into 2025. So at this point, I think Mark's report identifies that both projects qualify. There are kind of pros and cons to putting each one forward. As I understand, each project is at a slightly different stage of approval in your process in terms of the North Paris Fire Hall. So our understanding, based on discussions with FCM, is that either of these projects would qualify. In terms of getting that maximum grant, obviously the new library project is at greater cost, so that certainly could generate more in terms of, and the rebate portion looks like that could be $1.3 to $1.5 million. The rest would form some form of loan with FCM. So again, I think both projects qualify. I think what we have, the new information for us is just the information from FCM that don't submit both projects in 2024. So we have a timing issue. Again, I think the report lays out the pros and cons. We're prepared to make that application or move forward with those discussions with either of these projects. I would suggest that if it is the new library project, those discussions probably heat up a bit later in the year once we have some firmer, some more detailed costing on the project. But from our perspective, we're willing to pursue whichever of those options council or this committee might consider.
Okay. Councillor Howes?
Mr. Chair, through you and the clerk, would it be appropriate for us to break these two recommendations into separate discussions and votes?
If you want to put that forward and you get a seconder.
So I move that we break these into two separate discussions and votes, and then I have a motion related to this topic.
Okay, is there a seconder to that? Councillor McAlpine? So what we're looking to do is we're looking to separate into two separate motions. or recommendations, I guess. Everybody understands what the motion here is? Mayor Bailey?
I'd like you to read the first motion, please.
Certainly. Well, I think that's where it's gonna get a little tricky, because I think once we separate them, I believe Councillor House has an amendment for that first motion, which is second, technically the second clause. So, I guess we gotta vote to separate them first, separate or not, and then the other motion will come in. So, all in favor of separating the two into two different recommendations? Opposed? Okay, so that is carried. So now we have two separate recommendations. They both will start off with the main branch library project updates. Provide this report received as information, and Councillor Howes, you have a rewording for the first one?
Mine is specific to the second one, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
To the discussion we were just having regarding which grant to support.
Okay, to the second one then. Okay. So, Councillor Miller?
Since Darrell's at the podium, could I ask him a question?
Sure.
As far as the FCM application goes, so through to Mr. Chair to Darrell. Darrell, you said the library grant could be up to 1.3 million, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Miller, we understand that through the program, the maximum, if you were awarded the maximum allotment on a project, it would be 10 million, consisting of loan and rebate. So on that basis, the rebate piece works out to be about $1.3 million, Councillor.
And what about the fire hall?
Through the chair, I don't have that costing information in terms of the fire hall, so I'm not sure if we would be looking at a maximum award there, just by virtue of the value of that project, and maybe I could pass that question along in terms of the fire hall project.
Through the chair, currently the fire hall project has $5.3 million budgeted. So we haven't done the exact math on the FCM funding, but obviously the scope is much less than the library project.
Okay, so I'm going to put X in my equation here. Tough question to answer, I guess, but easy question to ask. Would a fire hall have a better chance of succeeding versus the library, or would they have an equal chance?
If I could, through the chair to Councillor Miller, I may call on Sean Yacob here from BME. I know Sean has had more detailed discussions with FCM around their criteria, or what forms eligible costs. So I might call on Sean just for a second, Mr. Chair.
Sean?
Through the chair. Good morning, everyone. So through my experience and discussions with the FCM over the last several months, it's a somewhat of a difficult question to answer. So one's already approved. So FCM doesn't necessarily require the project to be approved, but they like to see that it's approved. So one. Number two, some of the requirements for the sustainability piece on the library side seems to be a bit tenuous or a bit more challenging to attain some of those criterias. With the fire hall, it's right at the beginning stages. So we would build the fire hall around those criterias to meet the grant. So maybe that answers or helps to answer your question.
Okay, it does. It sounds like the fire hall is a better shot. That's what I'm saying. Okay, I'll finish the rest of my thought when we get to deliberations. Thank you, guys. You're welcome.
Councillor Garneau?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I can ask a couple questions to the BME folks through you. What happens if we, and maybe you don't know this, are put forward an application for the FCM grant, we're awarded it, and then the project doesn't go ahead, And if that is the case, say in future we identify something else, are we then prejudiced on a subsequent application?
Sure.
And through the chair to Councillor Garneau, part of the FCM application process is a number of meetings and discussions as you lead up to finalizing that application. And ultimately, they're going to be looking for approval that this project has been tendered and is moving ahead. So again, I'm not going to speak for FCM, but I would see no reason why, if one project had to be inserted for the other at a later date, if it was determined that the project was delayed for some reason, that we could not insert the other one. Again, we might run into a timing issue with FCM because they have a limited number of funds they're going to distribute through 2024. But if the question is, what happens should we not get approval, or approval doesn't come on a timely basis, I would suggest that they're already aware of both projects. I wouldn't think, again, I don't want to speak for them, but I think there would still be an opportunity to resubmit the other project.
Okay, so we've kind of gotten into two different directions here. We've got, now that we've separated them, we've got the first one that says, council directs staff to finalize detailed designs and issue tender documents beginning with the portion of the heritage restoration work. Councillor Howes, did you want to do something with that one?
Mr. Chair, my previous intention was to make a recommendation related to the second clause. However, I will, specific to the first clause, recognizing that the council has already approved finalizing detailed designs and issuing tender documents, which is the road we're on right now. My recommendation is that we tender them both at the same time, which I understand from Mark a few minutes ago. Doing them both will end us up with a total amount sooner. Because Mark's nodding, Mark was saying that doing the heritage first and then doing the new build second will take us longer for us to get to the meeting where we have the final decision. So my motion is that we do the two together sooner.
Okay, so that's not what the first clause says. So you want to reword that you're amending that first clause?
That's my proposal.
So it'll be the council directs staff to finalize detailed designs and issue tender documents. Period?
Both, yeah.
Tender documents.
Which I...
Taking out the beginning with the portion of the heritage.
Right, which I believe we've already voted on a year ago. But to get it nailed down today, to clarify the instruction to not do the heritage part first, to do them both.
Okay, so we're going to, just for everybody's sake, we're going to take out the part of that clause that says beginning with the portion of the heritage restoration work. Correct? Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Bell. Any questions on that amended motion or recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now on for the second clause. The council directs staff to prepare an FCM Green Municipal Fund grant application for the most preferred project candidate as determined by council. So that opens it up to this committee and then to go to council. So Councillor Howes?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to start the discussion on this. I see the grant as an opportunity.
So I'm gonna just back you up here. Let's have a motion first as to which way you're going, and then we can talk about it.
Oh yeah, okay, fair enough. Okay, so I move that it be the library project that we prioritize this year for our grant application. Okay. And I'll speak to it when the time is right.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor McAlpine. Okay, Councillor Howes, go ahead and speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just briefly, what I see happening is I see us, I'm hoping we can do both projects in.
We do. Right. Okay. Gonna call a timeout there, Mr. House, Councillor House. We've got to go back now and approve the first clause as amended. Okay, we voted on the amendment to take that beginning with the heritage part out.
Okay.
Now we have to vote on the clause as amended. Okay, so all those in favor of the first clause as amended? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so, sorry about that. Back to you, Councillor House. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So, to repeat what I was saying was, I move that it be the library that be the project we submit for the grant for 2024, and I'll speak to it in more detail at the appropriate time.
Any other discussion on that motion to use the library as 2024 FCM? Councillor Milne.
We have a seconder?
Yeah, Councillor McAlpine.
Yeah, I don't agree, and I'll tell you why. If you do the math, library 1.3 million, we don't have a number for the fire hall, we put a little X there, times it by the percentage chance of getting that. We've acknowledged that the fire halls is a greater chance, so you multiply the possible amount by the percentage, we will come out further ahead with the fire hall. I'll give you an example. If we have a 10% chance at a 1.3 million, that works out to 130,000. If the fire hall, maybe the grant could be 500,000. If we have an 80% chance, that's 400,000. So I'm just doing the straight math. The fire hall comes out ahead because you got to take the possible amount times the probability. So probability of winning law is 649, not very good. Cheap ticket, but still doesn't. Odds of winning are not very good. So I don't support the library for the FCM funding. I think the fire hall will give us a better bang for our buck.
Councillor Garneau.
Thank you. I'd also like to speak against prioritizing the library for the grant. As has already been noted, there's merits to pursuing the fire hall first. I'm also cognizant, even if, we are not successful with the library, we can proceed to the fire hall, or if we are successful with the library and the project scope changes to fallout, we've invested a considerable amount of staff resources in these processes. And I wouldn't want to see our folks at BME, when it appears we may have a bird in the hand to pursue something that may come to fruition in some scope, because as much as these folks are already accounted for in our staff salaries, my question would be, what are we not doing and what could we be doing instead? So all of that to say that I can't support the prioritization of the library, and I think we should be looking at the fire hall.
Okay. Anything else to that? Councillor House, final word.
Thanks. Sure, and just supporting my own motion. My look at this is that, and I'm hoping, like, we're halfway through 2024. I'm hoping that one project can happen this year and the other project can happen next year, perhaps. But the whole goal with a grant is to save the taxpayers, reduce the amount that you're hitting the taxpayer piggy bank for a project. And with the library project as the grant application, and I understand the arguments that have been made, and I kind of understand Councillor Miller's math, but I see an opportunity to improve the taxpayer piggy bank with the bigger grant opportunity. That's my argument in favor of choosing the library project.
Okay. Anybody? Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a technical question. The FCM grant comes in the form of a loan and a rebate. Do we know whether the interest rate on the loan would be different from the interest rate we get if we went to Infrastructure Ontario for the full debenture?
Nelson?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Sean may be able to clarify this a little bit more. My understanding is that we expect them to be roughly the same.
Through the chair to confirm with Allison's comment, yeah, it's about the same.
Councillor Oakley?
Through the chair to staff, is it possible to postpone this decision to next week when we ratify at council? The reason why I ask that is I feel uncomfortable making the decision on which grant we should go for when we don't have actually a clear picture right now, how much we're asking for the fire hall. I by and large agree with what Councillor Miller is going down the road of, but without having any idea what we're going to get out of that grant portion, you know, if we're getting 100% chance of getting $100,000 of a loan because of the greatly different costs in these two projects, I don't know if it necessarily does come out ahead because I don't know what percentage this grant covers of a project. If people see what I'm saying here.
Okay, so you're looking to defer this? Then?
Yes.
Or table it?
Yeah.
It doesn't need a seconder for that, just a vote, right? Okay, so I guess that kind of halts any. Councillor Chambers?
Procedurally, it doesn't make any difference because you can always not accept the recommendation of the council and change it then anyway.
Councillor Oakley?
Acknowledging that, I'll rescind that, and if we could just have an update on what those numbers would be at council, so we can make a more informed decision then.
Okay, I think we can do that. Okay, so no other questions, comments on the motion? I just want to say a couple things. I shouldn't as chair, but I'm going to anyway. I guess the way I look at this is we're already halfway through 2024. This loan is for 2024. As Daryl stated there's only a certain pot of money. When that pot of money is done, then we would be pushed to the next year if in fact we don't get in there for the pot of money this year. He also stated that one of the factors is to have an approved project. With the designs coming back not until September, October, that's pushing us till probably October anyway before we're necessarily approved for the library project. And I would hate to wait until it is approved in order to have that factored into the whole process, and then again, it to be pushed. Councillor Howes, to your point was you wanted the library in for 2024, and then for 2025 we could do something else. I think we should swap them because we can go for 2025. That way we will have, you know, we could have, if it's an approved project, that absolutely helps us moving forward with that. And I think I feel that, and again, it's just my own opinion here. I feel that if we wait and we don't have all the boxes checked and we don't get it by the time we switch it around to potentially the fire station, that pot of money could be gone for 2024 and it's going to push us back. So for that, I can't support the recommendation of the library at this point in time for this particular fund. Okay, Councillor McAlpine, last word, and then we're going to vote.
So will we be eligible in 2025 for this grant then still? That's
grants.
Okay, if you don't mind. So the answer is yes, but the grant is not retroactive. It is what you've already, let's say that the library or the fire hall is already starting to get built before you submit the application. The grant is only for the money that's already been spent. Right. I mean, not the money that's been spent. It's only for what you have not spent so far. Sorry for that correction, if that makes any sense. Okay. So let's say you move forward with the library, but you wait for the fire hall. April 1st, fire hall is already 50% built. You're only going to get the grant for the remainder amount you have not allocated to POs yet. If that makes any sense.
Okay.
So
technically, if we had the approvals in October to go ahead with the library project, we started out with the old part of the building, we could still apply the grants then to the new portion.
Wouldn't recommend moving forward with the application according to FCM until the project is approved going forward.
Yeah.
You can do it before, but they'd rather you wait until it's approved.
Right.
Okay, so we're voting on now the second clause, which is to use it for the library for 2024. Everybody's clear? All those in favor of that recommendation? Opposed? That is defeated. Somebody want to put a new recommendation on? Councillor Coleman?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we apply for the grant for the fire hall.
Seconder, Councillor Garneau. Questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. As amended. So now we've got to vote on the whole recommendation, right? On this one here. Right. Okay, so now the second motion, we're going to approve it as amended, that it will be going to the fire hall. Everybody's?
Yeah.
We voted on the amendment. Now we have to vote on it as amended. I got in trouble for that last time, so I'm getting it right this time. Okay. So everybody's clear on that? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Okay, so 8.3, moving on, RPT-0317-24, appointment of an engineer for the Cathcart Drain. Can I get a mover? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Miller, questions on that report? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.4, RPT-0316-24, abandonment of parts of Harley Municipal Drain. Can I get a mover? Councillor Chambers. Second? Councillor Kyle. Questions on that report? Councillor Miller.
Just a question of clarification. When does that 10 days start? When is that ticking?
Greg?
Through the chair, sorry, let me just bring up the paragraph. Sorry, I was chasing trees this morning. I was a little frazzled coming in here. What section are you looking at? Sorry, Councillor Miller.
Sorry, people have 10 days to appeal. 10 days of the date the municipality's notice was sent. Any owner sends a notice to the clerk of the municipality requesting that a report of an engineer be made on the proposed abandonment. So people can appeal that.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, it's not 10 days when we approve it at council, it's 10 days when that notice was sent?
That's correct. 10 days after notice, they have the right to appeal.
And has the notice been sent, or is that you need council's approval, I guess, for that?
We need council's approval to move forward, to start the process moving forward through the chair. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I've never seen this before, but the report makes sense.
Yeah, this doesn't happen very often, the abandonment of drains. But in this case, we've had a lot of conversations with the landowner, with Shannon, myself, and Rob Walton. And in this sense, in this case, it does make sense. It's going to be a lengthy process, but the landowner does know that. So this is just getting the process started.
Apologies. Councillor Pierce is just in the bathroom. I'm just going to call on the vice chair just to fill in his absence. Whoever the vice chair is.
That's Steve.
Just kidding.
Sorry about that. Dodged a bullet. So, you got your answer on the 10 days? Councillor Chambers.
Through the chair, now that he's back, to Greg, if I understand it correctly, that it's kind of a win-win situation for everybody, because if you abandon a portion of the drain, the people assessed on the drain are no longer responsible for that portion of the drain, and the landowner that is requesting it is looking for a mutual agreement drain, which will allow him to maintain it without having to go through a long, involved process, so it would be beneficial to him in that regard. Is that the reason why they're doing this?
Through the chair, that's correct, and it's also to protect the municipality and the roadside drainage. Through this agreement, once we get to the final agreement signed off, even though they're closing in this open ditch, we still require drainage in the area. And the difference is that it will become the landowner's responsibility to maintain that piece while also maintaining local drainage in that area. And then it won't be assessed back to the county or to the local residents.
Any other questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.5, RPT 0319-24, Brant Transit. I got Councillor Oakley, Mayor Bailey. Questions on that report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.6, RPT 310-24, Sidewalk Snow Removal Bylaw. Can I get a mover? Councillor Howes, Councillor Kyle, questions? Councillor Miller.
Clarification there, Mr. Chair. So snow removal, the onus is on the, say you have you rent a rental unit, the onus is on the landlord to get that snow removed. Did I read that correctly?
Mr. Bergeron is going to come up and clarify that.
Through the chair. So we've defined owner in the bylaw, and that would be all encompassing. So it could be the occupant or the tenant. It would be, dependent on what the lease agreement says. Ultimately, we would end up cleaning the property if the notice wasn't complied with.
Councillor Miller?
Yeah, I don't like the word could. It should, or it will, or shall. But at the end of the day, if it's the county that does it and bills, they have to bill somebody, and we can only bill property owners. So I think at the end of the day, go back to my original question, the onus has to be on the landlord.
Through the chair, ultimately, the costs would have to be absorbed by the owner. It would go on to the tax roll for the owner. And I guess at that point, it would be up to, the landlord and the tenant to kind of work things out amongst themselves. Okay. But ultimately, we want to have clear sidewalks.
No, I agree. So, but I think for those landlords out there, I think they have to be cognizant that they are ultimately responsible, and they could deal with it in a landlord-tenant. The agreement maybe have a clause in there. Last question. I'm pretty sure the answer, but a lot of people like to go south for the winter. I'm not in that category, would love to be. They're still responsible for the snow in front of their place, even if they're not there, correct?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. You're still responsible, whether you're in country or out of country.
Okay, so if you go away for an extended period of time, make sure you have a plan. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Oakley?
Through the, sorry, my apologies. Through the chair, to Greg. So houses on corner lots and the intersection, they're still responsible for clearing to the intersection with the sidewalk there, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So if they have like a budding, let's say they're on a corner lot, they would have to clean both sides of the sidewalk.
Yeah, and like in where the sidewalk abuts against the street, are they also responsible for removing that windrow in front of the sidewalk there? No.
Well, that's a tough question. Generally, depending on if the plow has gone by and the level of snow, we have worked with operations before. Well, they're going to go back and clean those areas. We recognize that sometimes we have heavy snow and it's not feasible for people to be shoveling windrows. So we do work with operations on a case-by-case basis. But generally, the intent of the bylaw is to clean snow that is, newly fallen Really not anything that's been plowed, because it tends to be pretty heavy and cumbersome.
Okay, if it was possible, just in these communications, have some of that clarification. Some of the some of the comments I receive is sidewalks are clear, but now I can't cross the street because I have a stroller or whatever else, and I can't get across the windrow. So just some clarifications on how we handle that in the communication would be excellent.
Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to Greg. From my office, all winter long, I see perfectly clear sidewalks because you've done that. But people get out of their car and they can't get to the sidewalk. Where have we protected ourselves where we're going to do little troughs or little walkways from the parking piece to the sidewalk for people, older people, they can't get over those humps. So
Up through the chair to Mayor Bailey, that is something that's been identified in the past, and I think we've had some recent case law surrounding that. So operations is very aware that there is probably a responsibility for us to kind of remove some of that. Greg Demers can probably speak to that a little bit more, because it doesn't really fall into the purview of what we're looking at here. I don't know if Greg wants to come and chat about it a little bit.
Yes, thank you through the chair. So these windrows, what you're talking about, there is a case actually being heard here in Canada right now, but the windrows is totally separate issue other than sidewalk clearing. Access, we can look at, we do windrow cleanup. We wait for it to get to a certain point and then we pick it up. To remove it after every storm, we could do that, but it would be very expensive and not plausible to do it after every storm with county staff. So it would have to be contracted out and would have to be a budget consideration if council wanted to move forward in that direction. Right now, we have levels of service hours where our operators can only operate a certain amount of hours within a week. So sometimes we'll go 2-3 days fighting a storm. We'll give the operators a break or two, and if there's no other storm forecasted, there's an opportunity for us to come in and clear up downtown. That's our current practice right now.
Through you again to Greg. More than one, maybe more than 10 times, I've seen people in walkers walking up the road to the crosswalk, because that's the first chance they get to go back onto the sidewalk. And there's something desperately wrong with watching that happen. I don't know what else to say about that. It's just something that if we wait, now that it's been brought up and it's out there, I mean, we just can't have that. It doesn't seem right and it isn't right. So however, whoever's department it is to do those little troughs or those little ways of getting people from their cars to the sidewalks, we have to do it.
Through the chair, we are roads. We work actually a lot with Greg and the bylaw group. So we are bringing forward a winter plan again, and then we're also bringing forward another report as requested for sidewalk clearing this coming October, November for council and consideration. And if it sounds like you guys are Mayor Bailey, you might be planting the seed, maybe we should make that part of it. I can get some cost estimates as to what it would be to clear up the downtown BIAs, whether it's Paris, Burford, or St. George, so that council has an idea of what they're looking at for that level of service.
Thank you. Everyone has a cell phone, everyone has a camera. And if I think it looks odd, somebody that's not in a good mood will think it looks very odd, and you'll get pictures.
Councillor Chambers and Councillor Bell.
Just to be clear, there are no areas that are currently cleaned by the county that will not be cleaned as a result of the repealing.
That is correct. There for the sidewalk clearing, this is just a bylaw update. There's the roads has not taken any sidewalks away, not in my time here. If not, actually we've added quite a bit more over the last few years, so we're not looking at reducing any services whatsoever.
Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I noticed a big difference between the old bylaw and the new bylaw in respect of the clarity on penalties. In the old bylaw, there's no number mentioned. In this bylaw, I'm sure our residents will be pleased to know that they could be fined up to $25,000 for failing to clear their sidewalk. How many penalties have we applied in the last few years?
Through the chair, I don't have those stats in front of me, but I think they're few and far between, to be honest. We usually get compliance with the residents when we do deliver notices at their door. Barring that, we have on occasion, hired a contractor to basically perform the work. We put those provisions in there just to kind of beef up the regulations. We never know what's going to happen on the sidewalk, right? But they're there. They're under the authority of the Municipal Act, and they're just indicated, in the penalty section. Pretty standard.
So our normal practice is to give a warning or a request to comply, and if that fails, then we do it ourselves and we impose a fine.
Through the chair, yeah, that's correct. So basically, this bylaw is a rewrite. It's been updated. It formalizes the process that we've been using for years, where we generally will give people 24 hours after the cessation of the accumulation of snow to clean up the sidewalk. Yeah.
Any other questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.7, RPT 0236-24, repeal and replace to open air burning bylaw. Mover, Councillor Howe. Seconder, Councillor Coleman. Questions on the report? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very similar to the question on 8.6. Somebody's in violation of the burning bylaw. Say they're, burning during a fire ban. Fire dispatch comes out. They issue a ticket. The ticket is against the person, not the property. Is that correct? And if they don't pay the ticket, is it them that goes to a court or finds themselves in front of a court, or do we just throw it on the taxes?
Darren or Greg?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn this question over to Greg.
Sorry, I was just sorting myself out there. Can you repeat the question? The fine you were asking about, does it?
I said we should use the snow to melt use the fire to melt the snow. When say somebody's violating the burning bylaw for whatever reason, they might be burning, say, during a fire ban. Fire goes out there, or bylaw goes out there. They issue a ticket. Is the ticket against the person, or is it against the property?
I don't have the bylaw in front of me, but I have worked on it extensively, and I think the language speaks to person. I think most of the verbiage in there is no person shall.
And that, okay, so it's different than the snow bylaw, which is kind of against, like we talked about earlier, the onus is on it is at the end of the day on the property owner. If that person doesn't pay that fine, do they end up in court, or do we just say, no, we'll just throw it on the taxes? How's that dealt with?
So if they don't pay the fine through the chair, so if they don't pay the fine, it basically goes into default, and then it'll be presented to a JP, and the JP will make a decision on whether that person is guilty or not, and then they'll stamp the ticket as guilty.
Okay, so it's still on the person. Okay,
yeah,
and big difference between that and the snow bylaw. Okay, thank you.
Seeing no further questions, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, that brings us to section 9, committee reports. Cemetery Advisory Committee minutes. Can I get a mover? Councillor Coleman, Mayor Bailey. Questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. 9.2, Sports Hall of Fame minutes, June 4th. Get a mover? Councillor Kyle, Councillor Chambers. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 9.3, Brant Connects Committee of June 5th. Can I get a mover? Councillor Miller. Councillor Kyle. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. 9-4 Tourism Advisory, June 6th. Can I get a mover? Councillor Kyle, Councillor Oakley, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. 9-5 Brant Heritage Committee, June 6th. Can I get a mover? Councillor McAlpine. Excuse me, Councillor Howes, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 10 communications, I don't see any. 11 other business, we got media communications. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. In May, late May, this council decided to end its participation in the joint City Council Shared Services Committee. We released a press release. The local media chose to print an article entitled "Brant Withdraws from Joint City County Services Committee." The focus of the article, which is the only one I saw, was City at a crossroads following decision. It really didn't reflect the rationale that we had put forward for withdrawing from that committee. It was barely addressed. In fact, Mayor Davis called the county's decision a devastating blow, an incredibly disappointing approach to area-wide challenges and issues, and the two communities must work together to address these. So he said most of these initiatives are now dead in the water. And I take offence on that. I mean, that is not the case. We are working diligently with the city. We are working diligently with our other neighbouring municipalities. We are a good partner to work with. In fact, the city councils went on to recommend that the province provides a facilitator to work with the city and Brant County to address specifically regional transportation issues. The city council said we're now left with very few options within city boundaries. And Mayor Davis went on to say that the long-term solution is likely amalgamation, or alternatively asking the province to consider moving the airport and the surrounding lands into the city. Despite the dissolution of the committee, the county remains committed to exploring future collaborative opportunities with all of its neighbouring municipalities, including the city. And Mayor Bailey is quoted as saying, "We choose to collaborate with each other on a number of services that are mutually beneficial. The services that we currently partner on will be maintained, and county staff will work to continue on other initiatives with city staff just outside of that committee platform." In my view, the committee had done its job. It had identified the issues. We'd agreed how to move forward. But I think our reputation, our standing in the community has been diminished by the failure for local media to report a balanced view on this story. And maybe the only answer is to actually pay for a space in a print media that actually puts out our side of the story. I think it's really important to reiterate that it's our intention to remain an independent single-tier municipality, but one that will work and does work with other municipalities, but only if we get an equitable outcome for County of Brant residents. And it actually leads me to the conclusion that if the city wishes to work with us on, and I use the example of regional transportation issues, that require the potential transfer of land or the utilisation of county lands, then there has to be an economic equation that's solved. Such collaboration should not come for free. I think this, if it all boils down to the city wanting more land to do what they want to do, of course we can work with them, but it doesn't come for free. So I would encourage this council to look again at the draft that has been circulated that offers a balanced perspective on the position the county takes with respect to collaboration with other municipalities. And I would welcome, and this is a personal view, but I would welcome that if the city wants to engage in discussions about, for example, taking over the airport, come and talk to us, offer us something, but don't just assume we can get it for free. Here endeth the first lesson.
Thank you for that, Councillor Bell. Anybody want to say anything? Mayor Bailey?
Well, I want to say something just because it involves me. I was quoted. But I mean, our communications team had that article, that press release done the moment they could. And we sent it to them exactly the way we wanted it to read. It was our press release. It was it had a picture of our council chamber with it to go to our press release because it was a county position on something the county did. And there it was in the paper with a great big quarter-page picture of Mayor Davis looking terribly upset with us, and our picture wasn't even used. So I'm getting really kind of tired of anything that we put out in the Brantford Expositor as being tainted or not true. And I don't know what we can do about that. I don't know what the county can do about that. The last 2 or 3 articles have not been what we've sent in, or they've been reworded, or the verbiage is different. And I mean, when you send in a picture to go with an article, it's very simple. You put the picture with the article, not a picture of another mayor from another city on the top of our article, and then just taint the entire content. So I think that we need to send a letter to someone saying that our communications are not being expressed. They just take them and they just do what they like with them. And the only way to solve that is to do a letter, an open letter, so that they have to do it word for word. But I mean, I'm afraid to complain too often and too loudly that we're just not being heard, and the things that people are hearing about us just aren't the truth. So I think we need to, I don't know if it's our communications, I know Allison and I have talked about it. We do our due diligence, we get it out as soon as we can, make it as clear as we can, send the picture with it so it makes sense when it shows up, and it just doesn't happen. So I'm a little tired of it.
Councillor Kyle?
Thanks, Mr. Chair, through you. So I can certainly appreciate the frustration. I share in some of the frustration of how perhaps some of what we've put out has been represented in the end. However, putting on my own hat and my day job, I do a lot of work with media and communications, and the reality is you can put out all of the press releases and send all of the accompanying images that you would like, but at the end of the day, it's editor's discretion. So the only way around that is to issue a letter to the editor specifically that they're obligated to print word for word. However, I would exercise some caution in that as well, because I think one of the things specifically, I know Councillor Bell has mentioned the word amalgamation. One of the things that we're at risk at the more we continue this round and round and roundabout with the city of Brantford is to look as dysfunctional as it feels we're being represented. So my feeling is that we continue to put out the good news stories about the good partnerships we have, even many of those with the city of Brantford for various initiatives such as the fire dispatch and things like that. I think that we are farther ahead to continue with that type of communication and to really show that we are a collaborative and cooperative partner to many folks around the area, and just let sleeping dogs lie, so to speak. I know they can stir up whatever they like. The reality is we don't have one media partner. We have several. We've got at least one in the room today, so I think we need to be mindful with how we're talking about those partners as well. So I would exercise caution in issuing release and continuing this ongoing battle, so to speak.
Councillor Chambers.
Yeah, I couldn't agree any more than with Councillor Kyle. It shows that she has expertise in this, and sometimes you fight your battles and you stay positive, and I think it's time to move on, as Councillor Kyle suggests, recognizing that every article in the Expositor is going to be good and bad and in between, and if you don't want to read it, don't read it, but I can guarantee you that I haven't read it because I don't get the Expositor, and that's the reason why.
Councillor Miller.
I'll just concur with what Councillor Bell would spur him to bring it forward in the first place. I mean, I've heard from six different Brantford residents. I'm friends with them, but they all said the same thing. because they read the article and they came out with a very negative view of the county. What's this? The county doesn't want to work with the city, blah, blah, blah. So I tried to set the record straight, but I'll defer to Council Kyle and her expertise on this. We'll let sleeping dogs lie, but at the same time, let's focus more on the positives.
Councillor Oakley?
Through the chair, I do agree with Councillor Miller and Councillor Bell's sentiments that it is frustrating. But I will agree with Councillor Kyle that the time to beat the drum of look at what we can do, we're good on our own, is every time we have a victory with, Six Nations, Norfolk, Haldimand, Oxford, North Dumfries, etc. And we're going to have lots of those because I have confidence in folks around the table and what we're going to do to work with all of our neighbors and peers. And that's the time in my mind to beat the drum of, yes, we're good on our own, not necessarily in a public media battle with another municipality.
Okay. Councillor Bell, final word.
Yeah, thank you. I heard the term sleeping dogs, let them lie. I think more in terms of boiling frogs.
And we will leave that as the last word. Okay, that's just a communication that's come in. That's fine. We're going to move into Councillor Chambers.
Under other business, Mr. Chairman, I know some members of the council, I couldn't attend myself, but there was an event, a tour of Enbridge facilities organized by SCORE. I'm wondering if someone could report on that. It is a good news story of collaboration amongst municipalities. I know Councillor Miller did attend the tour. I wonder if he wouldn't mind just addressing that, outlining some of the things that happened.
Hot off the press, our first news story.
Okay, well, Councillor Chambers is right. It was a great tour, and Councillor Oakley was there as well. So if I miss anything, I encourage him to add it. Not sure where it is. It's just very far away in the south there, and the reason it is where it is called the Dawn Hub, Dawn, D-A-W-N, Dawn Hub, is because underneath the ground, approximately 700 feet is an old coral, several million years old. And people think when you store gas underground, it's just a big cavern. It's not. It is a big piece of ancient coral, which you can force the gas in for. So that's why it's there. They showed us how well connected the hub is to various parts in North America, everything except west of the Rockies. So it's a very continent-wide infrastructure system set up. They've worked on it, for decades and whatnot. But we are very fortunate here in the province of Ontario, and I don't think enough people appreciate what a good system we have, because the Enbridge buys the gas. It's under contract. They showed us a graph from 2021 where, if you remember, the province of Texas was under a deep freeze, and they don't have regulated pricing there. And prices went, well, we were paying, we maxed out at $10 per cubic meter of gas. Normally it's a lot cheaper. It's about $1.50 or something like that. In the state of Texas, they went to $1,000 per cubic meter. And just for 1 week, they called this an intergenerational utility debt. So it's going to take more than one generation just to pay that off, because they racked up a bill of over $10 billion. But yeah, just going there, you appreciate the infrastructure, the amount of energy, and how important it is. They're shown 3 pipelines, each 36 inches wide, that feed just the city of Toronto. So, everybody goes about their daily lives. We have our showers, we turn on our stoves, we heat our houses. And it was pretty incredible to realize just how that all happened. So, don't know if they'll have another tour, but if they ever do, take it.
Interesting. Thank you for that, Councillor Chambers and Councillor Miller. Okay, so we are going to move into camera. We're going to move in camera. Motion to move into camera. Councillor Coleman, Mayor Bailey. Okay, so we're going to move in camera for 3 items. One of them is a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local boards. Apps Mill, it's verbal update by Councillor Miller. The second one is a proposed pending acquisition or disposition of land. Advice is subject to the solicitor-client privilege. A position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be appealed to negotiations. And the third is a personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipality or local board employees for the development service staffing plan. So we have a mover and a seconder to move in camera. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we are back in open session. There's nothing further on the agenda. Our next meeting is July 16th. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Coleman, thank you.